Hey folks, this is a sponsored video. Goodbye. Caring for others begins with self-care. In the context of a multi-millionaire spending $2 million a year on pseudoscience to increase his own lifespan, fuck off. Bryan Johnson also keeps a track of his sleep patterns by using a machine that also keeps count of his erections through the night. Hello lovely people, my name is Emma. Welcome back to my channel, and welcome if you are new. Anti-aging activist is a term I had never heard until just recently. So I became aware of this term through an article on The Independent about a man called Bryan Johnson, which I shall share with you now. Anti-aging activist Bryan Johnson has sparked yet more controversy. So here's a piece of news where I've already missed a controversy. What's happening to me? I'm so behind. He sparked yet more controversy after he shared an image of his face. It is deeply worrying if sharing a picture of your own face sparks controversy. Although I guess in some instances mine does. Especially if you can see a little bit of like downy hair on my face. That sparks hella controversy. I saw a cosplayer I follow post a selfie showing a little bit of underarm hair, and the controversy that sparked was unexpected to me as well, so I guess it can happen. Joking that even his iPhone was confused about who he was, Mr. Johnson shared a series of pictures of himself taken over recent years. Even my Face ID is confused, I'm transitioning, he said. There's a picture of him in 2018, 2023, and 2024. I don't think it's very polite to publicly comment on somebody's changing looks, and to be like, you look better in X way, you look better in this way. I mean, sometimes people can say, oh, I prefer this look on you, but this is great too. You know, people say stuff like that all the time that is more just a sharing of a personal opinion, but they're quite harsh, the opinions of Bryan Johnson. I'm pretty against this kind of commentary on his face. However, he's a millionaire. So in my personal, specific moral judgment, that gives us the right to ridicule the hell out of this fool. I also think, and we'll get into this as we discuss other anti-aging activists and the different things that they do and the information that they spread, I think it's generally this kind of anti-aging activism, which is the only kind that I'm aware of, is, I think, actually a cultural harm. And he's a fucking millionaire, so I'm gonna say what everybody else is saying. He looked better before he started doing whatever treatments. I mean, it's cosmetic surgery, isn't it? That's a completely personal choice. It's down to your own preference. You can have whatever, if you can afford it, and if you're a millionaire, you can afford whatever the fuck you want. I'm never gonna stop being anti-ultra rich. That's never gonna stop. You can spend money on whatever you want. It's all about being comfortable in yourself. I do think, personally, there may be a hint that if you are continually seeking changes to your outer self throughout your entire life, maybe there is an inner you thing that would help more, maybe be more beneficial, because if you have to keep having different treatments, then it's probably not helping as much as you hope that it will. In my personal opinion, and the opinion of a lot of people who saw these images, he looks more friendly, like a lot of people have said, just more human in the 2018 picture. He looks a lot more Silicon Valley. He looks a lot more millionaire in his 2024 picture, just because this seems to be the trend among them. And I don't love it. I've known people, and I know people who have a little bit of Botox or fillers, or like I get a bit of rosacea. I know people who have the same problem who get like dermal treatments for their skin for purely cosmetic reasons. There's a million treatments that you can have for whatever you want, and I think it's fine. When something becomes a trend, it does warrant examination, because that can unduly affect and influence people, especially young people. When we're talking about who is on all the magazine covers and stuff like that, that does affect people's self-image, and when the self-image that is touted is very unreal. Luckily now, most of us are so well versed in Photoshop and such technology, especially the younger generations, we all kind of accept and acknowledge and are pushing back on the rules in terms of photoshopped and edited and airbrushed images. I've got my window open and my door keeps like swinging open creakily, and it gives me a mini heart attack every time because I'm alone in the house and I think someone's opening my door. So I'm just gonna put a doorstop on it. My doorstop is a big frog, by the way. His name is Doorstep. because when I first got him, I said it wrong. I was editing some gameplay footage of a horror game earlier when it happened, and I nearly died. So yeah, this is Bryan. A lot of people think he looked better before. He seems to be taking that in quite a good way. He's had a pretty good response to it, which is just to be like, this is interesting what people think, isn't it? What do you think? Kind of thing, which is, a good way to handle this, I think. So he is 45, and a lot of people have commented that now he looks older than his years, despite the intention obviously being the opposite. And I think, again, that comes from that sort of, when he was a little bit younger, before his face shape had kind of changed so much, he had quite a rounded face, which is like a signifier of youth, having like full cheeks and more of a round face. Those are things that signal a younger person. It's like the baby fat thing. That's it's a thing. It's one of those like weird identifiers that we associate with youth. So with that gone, it does make him look older. It also makes his cheekbones look sharper and things like that that might be traditionally viewed as more attractive. So you can see why somebody might make these changes. However, it definitely seems like, while these are aesthetic changes that he might prefer, they don't instantly read clearly to people as younger. He looks older because he's aged as well, and that's fine. That should be fine. Bryan doesn't think that's fine. That's his whole vibe. So here we go. Mr. Johnson has become famous recently as perhaps the best-known representative of the movement towards anti-aging and the avoidance of death, which I think is, a pretty human trait, the avoidance of death, when you put it like that has become a focus of some parts of Silicon Valley. Reports suggest that he spends $2 million each year on trying to reverse the aging process and avoid death. $2 million. He's been very public about his process, which includes a strict regimen of physical activity, nutrition, and more, much of which is outsourced to a team of experts and computer programs. Millionaires, man. There's a quote from him here which I think is quite telling and kind of reflects something I mentioned earlier. "The troll inside my head is much more vicious than the trolls I get online. When I was depressed and my brain would constantly say to me life is hopeless, I had to basically say, I don't care what you're going to say." And he does say, ultimately, it lost its power. So that's good. If we're taking him at his word, this is making him happier. And if he's getting better nutrition and doing more exercise, that would explain that. Those are great things to advocate for. They really can make a difference to your mental well-being. However, a good dietitian and a personal trainer, I guess it depends who you hire, but in general, those don't cost $2 million a year. Here's another kind of reaction that a lot of the public have had that I share, which is that, in fact, I'm going to read to you the top comment on this online independent article. "The 21st century Nero, fiddling with his appearance while the world burns. While interest rates soar, while people are becoming homeless, while people are, again, choosing between feeding themselves and feeding their children, someone incredibly wealthy spending millions of dollars on changing his face, on anti-aging, but we can see on cosmetic surgery and things as well, it does just rankle something in me that makes me think we should eat the rich." Now, before we go any further, let's address the elephant in the room. Yes, these are fabulous glasses. Thank you for noticing. If somehow you haven't heard me mention before, GlassesUSA.com, today's sponsor, is one of the largest eyewear retailers in the US. They offer thousands of eyeglasses and sunglasses brands. You've got your Ray-Bans, your Oakleys, Gucci, and more, plus contact lenses. The best thing about GlassesUSA.com is that you don't have to go into a shop and talk to a person, which is awkward. The second best thing about GlassesUSA.com is that they are insanely affordable. Their glasses start at only $39, which is up to 70% off retail prices. That's a good deal! GlassesUSA.com is a great place to stock up and save on your contact lenses. You get 25% off all contact lens brands: Vista, AccuView, Biofinity, Dailies, and many, many more. They're available with any prescription and for all uses. The only downside of shopping online is that you have to wait for something to arrive before you can try it on. Or do you? Not with the live try-on feature. Yeah. GlassesUSA.com has this AR virtual try-on feature. You just press the try on button, take off your current glasses, because otherwise you're already wearing glasses and that's going to be insane. And then boom, you're wearing glasses in virtual reality. The glasses I'm currently wearing are the Muse Cherish in pink, one of my favourite pairs, definitely when I'm wearing pink. Another couple of my favourite pairs then, these are the Ototo Everard in blue tortoise silver, and finally the Revel Relay in green. They have this neat green streak across the sides that I really like. These are a little bit sportier, I find. GlassesUSA.com is offering a crazy discount just for you guys, just for 24 hours. Click on the link at the top of the description box for all the details. Thank you so much for listening. Thanks once again to GlassesUSA.com for both my fabulous glasses and for sponsoring this video. So that's Bryan. I found out through, here's another Independent article. I'm not subscribed to the Independent or anything. They just feature a lot of articles that interest me for whatever reason. So I found out about another anti-aging activist, a rival of Bryan's called Dave Pascoe, who has like a budget version of anti-aging, of turning back the clock. Dave claims to have knocked 24 years off his internal age. Dave Pascoe, 61, claims to have reversed his biological clock thanks to his commitment to anti-aging techniques. Unlike his multi-millionaire rival Bryan Johnson's routine, they don't cost a fortune. He claims to have a biological age of 37. Here's how he does this. Pascoe takes 150 supplements a day and spends his time avoiding anything that could speed up the aging process, such as sugar or stress. Now, this is the budget version. 150 supplements a day is not a budget anti-aging process. Again, it just smacks of the rich person who has no concept of how rich they are compared to the average person, right? Like, the real kicker, the thing that really, explains this as not for the average person on a budget is his avoidance of stress and anything that could speed up the aging process. Most people are not privileged enough to be able to just avoid all stress. We all just come into stress in our lives, whether it's fucking traffic, work, like rising bills. Stress is an inevitable part of life that definitely feels like it ages you, and there's just nothing you can do about it. Like, I guess you can avoid going on roller coasters if you don't want the stress of I don't know, it's very bizarre. He's also careful to avoid toxins in his environment in products such as personal care items and fabrics. Again, being that conscientious of what you put in and even on your body down to the fabric is brilliant if you can do that, but again, kind of a privileged position to be in. It's been claimed that his current aging rate of 0.66 costs him $30,000 a year. Good budget! He says, I don't desire my health span to expire before my lifespan. My aim is to make them as equal as possible. Which is good. He means if he's going to live into his old age as he wants to be as healthy as possible then, which is, great. In a lot of people's personal opinion, some might say he looks better at 61 than Bryan does at 45. Because he looks a little bit more real. Pascoe's anti-aging is put down to 7 pillars of focus: sleep, exercise, nutrition, supplementation, limited environmental exposure to toxic substances, an infrared sauna, and finally, cold exposure. The infrared sauna allegedly improves growth hormones, increase heat shock proteins, and remove toxins and interstitial buildup. Pascoe is apparently number 6 in the World Rejuvination Olympics, which is a real thing. I'll tell you about that in a minute. This article then goes back to talking about Bryan Johnson and his $2 million a year anti-aging plan, which is called Project Blueprint. It involves 30 doctors who are helping him achieve his aim of becoming 18 again. Fucking hell, I'd hate to be 18 again. Obviously, mentally, he'll be 45 still, so it's not that bad, but he also takes 24 supplements a day. He microdoses lithium for his brain health. That is in quotation marks. He regularly has his blood tested, as well as having MRIs, ultrasounds, and colonoscopies. Those are all things that make sense, which would be great if loads of people could do regularly. If we could all get an overall health checkup like that every year, and we could all afford to check those things regularly, we would probably avoid or catch early lots of diseases that people do age quicker and die sooner from. It's just a matter of privilege. These two kind of opposing ideas, well, they're life-consuming either way, right? One of them spends $2 million a year, one of them spends $30,000 a year. Either way, they're taking loads of supplements, they're avoiding stress or going to the doctor regularly, avoiding sugar, being careful what fabrics they put near their body, the care products they use. You can't go to work every day and avoid stress, so, you know, that's like sort of a given in this bizarre age rejuvenation process. Essentially, you can't just live a regular life and live longer and be healthier in your old age. Or can you? Well, here's the fucking thing, right? Here's the thing. There's all this insane... So this is... let me show you this first. And then I'll tell you about blue zones to compare, right? So this is the Rejuvination Olympics page. You win by never crossing the finish line. There is something so fucky about the rich elite. They are so desperate to live forever, whether that is by becoming a big enough influence on the world to have their name live forever, or by literally physically living forever. Like, it feels like, especially in Silicon Valley among the millionaire tech bros, it feels like everyone wants to live for long enough to get their brain copied to a robot. You know, like they're just hoping for extending their own life to the point where general medical science can prolong them indefinitely, like something out of a sci-fi. It's fucking selfish, and maybe some of them do this with part of them thinking about helping humanity and creating general solutions to increase people's longevity. I'm sure some of them do genuinely think about that, but it's fucking selfish at its core, right? It's about extending your own life at the expense of just living a normal life. And, you know, like, I like sugar. I have that same human evolutionary sort of failing as it is now of really liking sugar, and having a little sugary treat every now and then is a sacrifice I make. And maybe I won't live forever, but I'll have enjoyed those precious sweet treats so much that they enhanced my life. As Queen rightly said, "Who wants to live forever?" Bryan Johnson and Dave Pascoe, I guess, but not me. This is the Rejuvination Olympics. This is the epigenetic leaderboard. You can see how you rank. The number one in the world is anonymous. Isn't that fascinating? Some fucking supervillain level billionaire. It's just so fucking weird. It's such a, like, it's like a Steve Jobs thing, right? You can be so brilliant and yet completely insane in some circumstances because of this desire to live forever. And you know, ultimately Steve Jobs' weird fucking diet and lifestyle probably hastened his end more than anything else. Like, it's just very fucking bizarre. Aging is the number one risk factor for almost every chronic disease and death. The most chronic of all disease. We believe that aging can be slowed with intervention, and that competitive age reversal is a way to encourage the world to find the best age rejuvenation strategies. That could be true. Maybe this will ultimately be a good, you know, thing, a force for good in the world. I'm skeptical. It seems like the sort of thing that will be forever restricted to the ultra-wealthy, this kind of, like, hardcore medical intervention, but I guess we'll see. It's about testing your blood and your immune system and stuff like that. Over 20,000 people have taken the True Diagnostic Speed of Aging test. 1,750 people have measured themselves longitudinally. How do you measure yourself longitudinally? Complete an epigenetic aging test. Oh wow, for only $500, you can get your true age. 144 pounds of tax. Biological age. But how? Physical fitness age, pace of aging, your immunity, smoke exposure risk, even finding out your starting point. Or I guess if you started, you know, a new diet and health regime and stuff and then tested it, even just finding out where you sit on this chart costs minimum $500. Costs $500 plus tax. That's insane. Let's just have a look at this New York Times article real quick, which asks if biological age testing is legit. Researchers define biological age as the accumulation of damage we can measure in our body. The damage comes from natural aging as well as from our environment and behaviors. Several companies now sell tests for around $300, so you can get them cheaper, that use this technology to calculate your biological age by analysing your blood or saliva and comparing changes in your epigenome to population averages. But experts caution that epigenetic clocks can't actually tell you much about your own health. That's because they were designed to assess large groups of people, not individuals. Consequently, their results can be unreliable. At a recent conference where Dr. Horvath spoke about the topic, an audience member said he had taken 2 different tests and received 2 different ages 10 years apart. Dr. Horvath said he should have saved his money. I think you could say the best of them are not completely useless, which is a very diplomatic way of saying it. They're not tried and tested clinical tools yet, so they're more for the curious. Another problem with the tests is that it's unclear what to do with the results. Scientists don't know how to reverse someone's biological age or whether that's even possible. In part, that's why the epigenetic clocks were developed in the first place. Researchers hope to use them in clinical trials for anti-aging interventions to measure potential changes in the lifespans of hundreds or thousands of people at a time. None of this has stopped companies from selling these tests alongside personalised health and lifestyle recommendations. In addition to supplements, they say will roll back an individual's biological age. Here's the thing, I guess we'll know when it comes to the eventual tragic end of Dave Pascoe and Bryan Johnson. We'll see how old they were, and we can compare that with their average population. But again, as just one individual, it's not really going to tell us very much. And while I'm sure lots of people will use, if they lived a longer life than average, say, a lot of people will use this system of $2 million and 30 doctors, and it was this thing and this thing, but doing all those things in combination makes it very hard to say what it was. Maybe one of them will live a bit longer, and it will be because they had, a good diet and took regular exercise. While those things sound simple, they're quite hard to develop habits in across a population. So some people will say, you see, this supplement turns back the clock on your aging, but it'll be 1 out of 150 supplements that might not have done anything. Some companies offer a panel of conventional blood tests you might receive at the doctor's office, like cholesterol or hemoglobin A1C, a marker for diabetes. They say that because many of these numbers increase as we get older, they can be used as a proxy for a person's biological age. For example, if you're 45 but your cholesterol levels look more like the average 50-year-olds, the test might say your biological age is older than your 45 years. Whether blood marker tests actually track biological age as opposed to general health is up for debate. But an advantage of this kind of test is that it measures factors that can be modified. We know how to lower blood sugar levels through medication and lifestyle changes, for example. In contrast, epigenetic age is currently more of a black box. And then Dr. Pajanik said, expanding access and using more frequent testing to optimise health seems fairly reasonable to me, but that any claims of accurate individual level determination of biological age should be approached with caution. Finally, I would like to talk to you about the Blood Boys. The Blood Boy thing is, yes, a joke from the TV show Silicon Valley, but like most of the jokes in that show, it is based on real life millionaire freaks. Going back to our anti-aging pal Bryan then, he does employ this technique of parabiosis. I'll check that when we get to it. As per this article from Business Today, Bryan enlisted his 17-year-old son as his personal blood boy for a controversial practice called plasma swapping. He feels...
Facts don't care about your feelings.
He feels that regular blood transfusions will keep his internal organs young. He, along with his 70-year-old father Richard, went to a clinic near Dallas in Texas for a unique tri-generational blood swapping treatment. Johnson often receives plasma from anonymous donors who have been carefully chosen to ensure they have an appropriate BMI, a healthy lifestyle, and are disease-free, reported Bloomberg. Caring for others begins with self-care. That is a statement that in any other context, or without context, I would completely agree with. In the context of a multi-millionaire spending $2 million a year on pseudoscience to increase his own lifespan, fuck off! Oh, there's so much more you could do to help people and care for others with $2 million than swap blood with your son and get cosmetic surgery. I'm sorry, but come on. Fucking tech bro millionaires. If we all voted tomorrow to send every one of them on a rocket ship to Mars, I would not be sorry. So his son offered a litre of his own blood, which was then converted into separate batches of liquid plasma, red and white blood cells, and platelets. So I was reading about this in the bath, where I do most of my reading, to be honest. This originates from studies done on mice, and it is one of those situations, again, where the studies were not conclusive anyway, on mice, which are not humans, and one of the leading, scientists who did those studies said, my studies should not be taken to use as a basis for human trials. So that involved young and old mice being brought together to share a circulatory system, and the older rodents improved in cognitive function, metabolism, and bone structure. However, sharing a circulatory system is not the same as transfusing blood, and also they were mice. While expressing his opinion on plasma swapping, Charles Brenner, a biochemist at City of Hope National Medical Center in Los Angeles, said, "We have not learned enough to suggest that this is a viable human treatment for anything. To me, it's gross, evidence-free, and relatively dangerous. The old use of blood plasma includes offering it to patients experiencing trauma, burns, shock, severe liver disease, and clotting deficiencies." Bryan Johnson also keeps a track of his sleep patterns by using a machine that also keeps count of his erections through the night. Johnson wrote that the project was born after feeling helpless to stop myself from overeating to soothe the pains of life. That is a huge fucking leap from knowing that you're emotionally overeating to spending $2 million a year and selling brain measuring helmets. That's such a fucking weird millionaire thing to do. Overeating to cope with the stress of life is such a relatable human thing, and then his reaction to it is so insane that it just kind of makes me think that once you get to a certain level of rich, you're not really human anymore. Like, you share many traits with humans, but there's something about you that is fundamentally different that keeps you separate enough to think that this is a way to eventually care for others. Insane. Okay, that's all the mostly pseudoscience, some sort of genuine science and good ideas around, just general health and wellness, like exercising and nutrition and taking supplements if you're deficient in something. It's like the thing with vitamin C tablets, where often a tablet will have far more vitamin C than you can actually process in a day, so it sort of becomes redundant. The amount of vitamin C is sort of redundant. There's all this sort of... read Vitamania, it's such a good book. The vitamin industry is insane. And I take supplements anyway. I mean, I gotta take that vitamin D. But again, even then, you need the vitamin D to be activated by the sun. Like, tablets and supplements aren't a magical cure-all. Whatever. So all that aside, in the real world, science has discovered there are people, and humanities, I guess. Science and humanities have discovered. We have discovered, as people, that there are zones in the world where people generally live longer and have better health in their older age, and are less prone to chronic diseases. These are called blue zones. This is a Healthline article that I'm getting some bits from here, and I enjoyed that this article was written by somebody and then medically reviewed by somebody else. I think that's a nice touch. So blue zones are geographic areas with lower rates of chronic diseases and a longer life expectancy. There are blue zones in Italy, Greece, Japan, Costa Rica, and the US. So the term blue zones was first used by Dan Puetner. Oh, I'm struggling today with people's names. I'm so sorry. Who was studying areas of the world in which people live exceptionally long lives. He wrote a book called The Blue Zones. So he described 5 known blue zones. Ikaria in Greece, which is an island where people eat a Mediterranean diet rich in olive oil, red wine, and homegrown vegetables. Note, the people of Ikaria are probably not all spending $2 million a year on 30 personal doctors having regular tests and cosmetic surgery and blood boys. Ogliastra in Sardinia, Italy. This is home to some of the oldest men in the world. They live in mountainous regions where they typically work on farms and drink lots of red wine. Some of you are like, I'm hearing the word wine a lot. Okinawa, Japan. Okinawa is home to the world's oldest women who eat a lot of soy-based foods and practice Tai Chi, a meditative form of exercise. The Nicoya Peninsula in Costa Rica. The Nicoyan diet is based around beans and corn tortillas. The people of this area regularly perform physical jobs into old age and have a sense of life purpose, known as Plan de Vida. Finally, the Seventh-day Adventists in Loma Linda, where more of you are likely to be from and thus correct me on my pronunciation of the place names. Seventh-day Adventists are very strict as a religious group. They're purely vegetarian and they live in very insular, small communities. A number of studies have found that these areas contain extremely high rates of nonagenarians and centenarians, which are people who live over 90 and 100. Genetics probably only account for 20 to 30% of longevity. Therefore, environmental influences, including diet and lifestyle, play a huge role in determining your lifespan. Once again, these people are not spending $30,000 a year on supplements and personal trainers. They're not spending $2 million a year getting blood transfusions. And it is much more reliable to observe groups of people as a whole than to look at individuals to try and identify what it is that's keeping them healthier and potentially living longer. So the peoples who live longest in the world and the peoples who experience fewer chronic conditions in that older age, they don't have blood boys, they're not taking 100 supplements a day, they're eating raw whole foods. They have things like reduced calorie intakes and fasting, regular physical activity throughout their life and into their older age, moderate alcohol consumption, although there are mixed findings about moderate alcohol consumption. Red wine frequently comes up because of the antioxidants you find in grapes. Getting enough sleep seems to be a huge factor in prolonging your life, living a long and healthy life. Not enough, as well as sleeping way too much, can significantly increase, your risk of health problems. Then there's the more sort of general lifestyle factors, like having a sense of community, having a sense of purpose in life, having a healthy social network, as it says here. We can all try and incorporate those things into our lifestyle without spending $2 million, and theoretically, hopefully, live longer, healthier lives. In my opinion, that area of study, the study of blue zones, and particularly in the kind of communities, because there tends to be a similar sort of community structure among those places. Being somewhere like London, while we have our small communities in different ways, it's very individualist. It's not like living in a village that is all interconnected. I think there is much more value in that than fascinating on these incredibly wealthy freaks who dedicate all their time and money to living as long as possible. Again, maybe some of them want to help people. I don't know. I'm extremely cynical about that, especially when it comes to somebody being a millionaire, because how can you be an ethical millionaire? You can't. Ultimately, one of the key differences between these rich widows and the people that occupy these blue zones is that they are not, the people found in those zones are not concerned with living as long as possible in some weird Silicon Valley, I must live on kind of way. They're just living their lives naturally, healthily, doing the physical exercise that their life requires of them, and living with their community. This bizarre anti-aging activist philosophy just creeps me out. It's the exclusivity of it, the privilege that is required to undertake any of their, their lifestyles is just so alien. And it seems totally unnecessary. Bryan Johnson has admitted that his journey into being a weird anti-aging guy comes from depression. And again, the most successful sort of aging populations in the world, they're not trying to live long and prosper. I couldn't help it. It just came out. It's so natural to end the sentence that way for me. They're just living. So I just thought that was kind of crazy. The fact that blood boys is a real thing, that it's also just pseudoscience, like fucking Millionaire pseudoscience, the worst kind of pseudoscience. It freaks me out, dude. It freaks me out that there's like a global competition, the Rejuvination Olympics, and to take part you have to buy these spurious biological age tests, which, the relevant scientists and doctors have said that doesn't really mean what it claims to mean. Like keeping an eye on your health and maybe having a regular blood test is probably a good idea. There's no harm in that, but like paying a company $500 to learn your biological age is probably a little bit of a scam, yo. Millionaires doing millionaire shit. Let me know what you think down below. Do give this video a cheeky like if you enjoyed it. Remember to subscribe if you haven't done so already. Don't miss out on future videos. If you know of any other weird trends, if there's any millionaires out there doing other weird fucking things, let me know. I'm curious. I'm forever curious. I would like to remind you that I have my own online course which is destined, maybe not to prolong your life, but certainly to enhance it. My $1 guide to being a silly little guy, featuring one training video and one PDF workbook just for you, is available on my Ko-fi. You can also just buy me a coffee over there if you want to. If you want to hear more from me, you can follow my gaming channel, Little Duck Gaming. I do very regular videos over there. They're lots of fun. There's some spoopies, some wholesome stuff. It's all very nice and good. You can, of course, become a channel member right here, right now. Or later. Or never. I don't mind. You get comment priority and some silly emotes, and you get a cute little duck next to your name. It's friggin' adorable! The best way to support this channel is via the Patreon. Patrons get free access to my silly little guide, as well as other videos you won't see anywhere else, merch discounts, etc. etc. Man, I saw The King and I on stage a little while ago. Fucking love that show. You can find my Patreon at patreon.com/EmmaThorneVideos. With that, I must give a big old shout out and a thank you to my giant chickens and colossal quackers over on Patreon, especially Conla. God damn it, Conla. Most importantly, have yourself a lovely week, and I will see you really soon.